best Supreme Court judge, worst Supreme Court judge, sitting.
Well, you asked before, why does this election matter? And I think it really matters because for McCain, he has come out and said, in his mind, the best Supreme Court judge is someone like Scalia or someone like Thomas. In my mind, and I don't want to judge individual judges, but I'm not interested in seeing someone who calls himself a strict constructionist and really does not follow that and really masks their interpretation under those words. I would not want to see them replicated. I think it's deeply disconcerting. I would like to see a judge that cares about social justice. I'd like to see a judge who cares about civil rights.
John Roberts.
You can apply the standard however you like.
That was interesting when John McCain was like saying that Obama, because Obama I guess supported the Guantanamo thing that said that crazy thing that like they're human beings or something here, and McCain is so out of touch. He's like, Senator Obama disagreed with Scalia and Alito, John Roberts. And he also agreed with the majority of the Supreme Court. It was weird. It's like, does he think that they're rock stars? Or like Alito! No! Like, why did he talk about them like they're these total...
You saw recently that John Roberts is quoting Bob Dylan.
Right.
That's the latest.
Well, I for years have been arguing that the right-wing renaissance has been ignored because, like, Lynn Cheney writes Sisters is a great book, John Ashcroft sings, Let the Eagle Soar, Colin Powell is a good
president
dancer.
dances.
Oh yeah, he's an West African dance fiend. But we'll do that after. We'll talk about Bush's dancing and tap dancing. That was so sad when he was running for McCain and he was tap dancing. You almost think he was adorable if he wasn't evil. Let's open it up to questions. You get used to it. When you're my age, excluded from video contests, your eyes adjust. Any questions?
They have a ruling that says that child rapists can be executed. I think that ruling is upsetting because I think that those horrible people don't deserve to be living because they violated child's civil rights.
So, you respond to that, or because I do, but I want you to. I mean, you actually know it. Mine's more of a spiritual thing because I'm not versed in the law, but.
I think those are some of the key questions in the country as to what is the future of the death penalty, what is the future of the rights of the accused, and there's a serious issue about where we want to go as a country. I think the tide has been turning around the globe on the use of the death penalty, in part because it's been used unfairly. Only 2 or 3 people on death row in the whole country because they've been accused of rape or sex with a child, and they happen to be in Louisiana. And I don't think that's a coincidence or because that's the only place it happens. There's gross inequality across the country in how those things have been applied, and gross racial inequality in how it's been applied. And I think that that's something that we want a court to seriously consider, and we want to stop. We want to stop that kind of unfairness. We want to stop that kind of inequality in the way the death penalty is applied. So there are other penalties. We have to be concerned about, obviously, criminal behavior, but we also have to figure out what is realistic and what has a pragmatic effect on changing the behavior. So I mean, it's a longer conversation.
There's also the question
not particularly funny.
There's also the question of in executing innocent people, right? I mean, that's, I feel like, the most persuasive anti-death penalty argument, because I think it's disturbing that there's like racial inequality, but I think that with a lot of the people who are for the death penalty anyway, they're kind of like, okay, too bad. Like, more of the people will happen to be this, but if they should be killed anyway and they're all guilty anyway, who cares? It's a statistical thing that's, we live in a racist world. Like, I mean, I have a problem with that view, but I feel like lots of people have that view, and that I think that then the problem is, okay, one day we'll have the science to know for sure whether someone killed someone, and then I'm still philosophically opposed to death penalty. But for now, it seems like the biggest way to kind of reach people who are for the death penalty is that way. It's just so scary to know that there's so many blocks to like having an appeal, and how many, I mean, they're only, the people who we know are innocent are only a percentage of the people who actually are, right? And like,
right, there are a tremendous number of people who have now been freed who are on death row, and that's a significant factor. I think the issue of rape, though, has its own unique history, and it's something you need to pay attention to.
it's hard because it's like if you're opposed to the death penalty for everything, which I am, we're not talking to zero whatever. I'm respecting the nonpartisanship of your individual and organization, but it's interesting because I'm against the death penalty for everything, but you can still be frustrated by. In this case, I'm not, but like. This is too long a discussion, but with hate crimes, I know some people who are against hate crime legislation because they think it is sending people of color and poor people to jails, and they believe that the criminal justice system is unfair, blah, blah, right? But that doesn't mean that, like, when someone, a Republican, is against including gay people in the hate crime, they're not doing it for the wrong reasons.
I would just say that the National Campaign to Restore Civil Rights, although it's a cumbersome name, is really a coalitional activity. And one of the things we try to do is direct people to sources of information. And so if you're interested in the topic, the Sentencing Project has a tremendous amount of great information. The National Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty has a tremendous amount of great information. The NAACP, the Legal Defense Fund, has a lot of information through their capital punishment projects over a long period of time. There are a lot of terrific sources of information about the history and the current use of the death penalty, its effectiveness, and particularly the issue of using it outside of the context of murder. And it's a great question and something that's worth thinking about.
Don't forget the spinal. Someone else had a question?
Actually, I had two numbers. As far as what percentage of people are executed are not white?
99.9.
Actually, there are two. The question was what percentage of people who are executed are non-white, and I don't have that information off the top of my head, but it is on the websites that I just mentioned. But there are really two factors that play a role. One is what is the race of the perpetrator, and what is the race of the victim. And over time, what's been shown is that both are very significant in determining what is the penalty and the application of the death penalty. A person who's African American who is accused and convicted of a crime against a white person is endlessly more likely to be given the death penalty than any other combination.
Number of black men who are innocent for possessing a very small amount of marijuana.
The number of people, young men.
The number?
It's a big number, like 400,000 African American men
Well,
are in prison for possessing like an ounce of marijuana.
So the Sentencing Project is a great resource for all of these stats, but the question, does someone have that information? The question was, what is the number of black men who are accused and imprisoned or given a penalty for possessing a small amount of marijuana? And the larger issue there is disparities in sentencing, and the Sentencing Project has great information about that.
And what's the deal with, there was a recommendation, right, that said that cocaine and crack should be treated as the same, even though it was, you know, even though the people who use one may be poorer, that doesn't mean that they actually legally should be going to jail more?
Right.
Basically, right?
Strange, isn't
I
it?
know, I mean, and they didn't take that, what was that?
Well, I think the larger point here is kind of what kind of judiciary do we want to have, and what value. We know that values come into play. Values come into play in interpreting the Second Amendment. Values come into play in interpreting whether it's cruel and unusual punishment. Values come into play in interpreting the Voting Rights Act, whether Congress has the power to pass a Clean Air Act. Values come into play in all this. And do you want values that involve social justice or issues of race and that look at that, or do you want values that aren't about that at all, that say, I mean, I don't want to characterize what those other values are, family, I don't know what those values are, but do you want values that don't take into account issues of social justice or fair play or fairness or opportunity or any of those things?
It seems like that's almost giving the family values side too much credit because it's not new. Like, I would say it's not neutral to have this disparity, right? I would say that they have a value of valuing, it's not just not paying attention to like historic injustice and racism, but it's also perpetuating.
Well, I don't think values are neutral. I think, you know, in the law, as a lawyer, we try to talk about, you know, advancing the cause of our client. But I think the law is supposed to approximate justice. And the law is not entirely neutral. It's supposed to represent justice in society. When you're in a society where the law departs from justice, you're in a society where people no longer respect the law. And that's a society that's going to break apart. And that's really what this election is about.